Christians are at the same time great Roman citizens in the practical means of its indirect and peacefully driven demise. What can we American Christians see and learn about ourselves from that threatened Roman Empire, flipping the paradigm, and how can those early Christians inspire us?
The way in which God would shape us through the Bible is not devoid of the history that came between the Bible's emergence and us. So it's not as if you can just jump seamlessly and easily from the first century to the first and not have 20 centuries of development in between. So all the political questions and so on are complicated and worked out in different ways in different times and places. But nonetheless, we keep reading Scripture because we're convinced that God speaks to us through Scripture and directly and in now, for now. So part of the task is to discern the analogies and the typological connections. With respect to politics, it's complicated, but there's some basic things you can learn from the early Christians that would help at least give us better footing and a better sense of where to make good prudential judgments. And one of them is that Christians have their own political ground. We don't emerge into a world that sets the terms for us that we have to take. Christianity at the beginning, for example, just to take an example, did not have their officials chosen for them in the church by local governments or city councils or anything like that. They had their own independent authority, and bishops, elders, and the rest were generated out of Christians' own sense of who should lead them. And that gave them, right from the beginning, a kind of independence within the larger Roman world of politics. And remember, back in the ancient world, it's true for us today too, but we have a grammar that teaches us otherwise. But we just have to remember, politics, religion, all that stuff was bound up in one thing. There weren't, politics, religion over here, all that. And that's true today too. But in the ancient world, they didn't even try to pretend.
Yeah. And in fact, it seems like that's more, the pretending is less now than it was 5-10 years ago. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We're learning very quickly that the ancients were right, that those things were blended together, for better and worse. So the Christians did not have, in other words, for them, politics determined ahead of time. And in that sense, they were very free. And they were free to be Christian. Which meant at any given moment, they could be supportive of some particular thing, or as the Romans called them, obstinate and refuse to do what was asked of them. For example, to sacrifice to the Roman emperor. The Romans could not understand, why would these people not worship the Roman emperor? Why is that a big deal? I mean, just do that and then you can have your life and whatever, and they just wouldn't do it. So in that way, part of what we learn is the choice is often presented to us as sort of Democrat or Republican, or X or Y, or what, and we're not bound to those choices. What it would mean to be free of those choices is something the church has sort of forgotten, and it's what we're trying to relearn. But in the 20th century, we got pretty hooked to some of those choices in America, and now we're starting to see that maybe that marriage of a particular political party and Christianity, one way or the other, was a mistake, and we're trying to get our own free political ground again.
Yeah, I think of Pilate, who's caught between the religious leaders and Caesar, right? His two allegiances, and he doesn't have an allegiance beyond those to be able to I guess, shed them both. And so he crucifies Jesus. So, and I guess in a sense, I see that with a lot of leaders that are also Christian and their allegiances. I guess I long for what you're describing, and I hope to see more of that as we go forward.
Me too, Jason.
Yeah.
It's not just writ large at the moment. I mean, but there are pockets of it and places where in the world where it's life or death to realize you have your own intrinsic set of goals and concerns and so on as a set of Christian communities.